On today's show, FanDuel betting favorites for Rookie of the Year heading into this next NBA season. Should Victor Wembanyama be an absolute lock to win the Rookie of the Year award? What can Chet Holmgren do to claim the award for himself? What narratives might be at play for the OKC Thunder to help Chet win this award? What other rookies are going to be in the Rookie of the Year conversation, or is it solely going to be a two-man race between Wemby and Chet? It's all coming up right here at Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Snap into the action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's just $5 to get $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action than right now. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and so much more. Right now, you can go take a look at the outright betting favorites for Super Bowl 58 after week 2 of NFL action. Kansas City Chiefs standing strong at plus 600 to win it all this season. The 49ers plus 700. Eagles at plus 750, and rounding at the top 5, you have the Dallas Cowboys at plus 850 to win the Super Bowl, and the Baltimore Ravens at plus 1,000. So for all those odds and more, be sure to visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season strong. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Joining us now is the host of Locked On Thunder, Rylan Stiles. You can track down wherever you listen to your podcasts and on YouTube. Just search Locked On Thunder. Here to break down the FanDuel Rookie of the Year favorites and odds heading into this next NBA season. And at the top of the list, to nobody's surprise, is Victor Wembanyama, plus 105 to win Rookie of the Year. We're going to start there, Rylan, before we get to your guy for the OKC Thunder, Chet Holmgren. Is it just a foregone conclusion in your mind that Wemby's going to walk away with Rookie of the Year? Like, I kind of feel like going into this year, Wemby just has to roll out of bed and make it to like 75% of the games, put up some numbers, and he's probably going to walk away with the award.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that, as we talked about last week, the awards voting is typically narrative driven, especially awards like Rookie of the Year, where you're not necessarily factoring in team success a lot of the time, because most of the best rookies are on teams that are not supposed to be elite win-loss record teams. And so I think that with Victor, you have all the hype, and part of that hype is voter validation. The people voting on this award are the people who have been hyping him up to be the next best prospect since LeBron James. And so if he is supposed to be the next best prospect since LeBron James and then doesn't win the Rookie of the Year award, there's going to be some egg on your face a little bit as the collective media, and there's going to be some fan pushback on that as well. So I think as long as Victor plays the necessary amount of games under the new rules, I think that he will have the best shot and the clear shot and will be Rookie of the Year.
Looking at the rest of the names on the list, though, so we got Victor at the top, plus 105. Chet Holmgren right behind him at plus 290. Scoot Henderson plus 370. And then there's a massive gap before any of the other names on the list. Brandon Miller for the Charlotte Hornets coming in at plus 1,400. And then Amen Thompson, another massive gap for the Houston Rockets, plus 3,400 to win the award. Rylan, you mentioned it, talking about kind of the narrative, right, and how maybe you don't factor winning in as much. But I feel like, especially these last couple of years, I think winning has kind of been factored in, right? Like, you go back to not this past year with Paolo Banchero. I think he was just kind of the runaway favorite to win it. But the previous year, right, when it came down to Scotty Barnes, Evan Mobley, like those guys, they were playing on teams that had a lot of team success, right? And I think winning was kind of a factor for those guys. And you even go to like the Herb Jones, Jalen Green debate for all rookie first team, right? And winning was kind of factored into a lot of the support that was coming for the Herb Jones camp. So I think when you look at Chet, he might actually have a legitimate shot to win the award, not just on an individual basis, but I think the team element, especially if the Thunder take a leap this season or another step forward, then that could really help out his case to try and win Rookie of the Year or take it away from Wemby, if you will.
Yeah, I don't think that Chet is out of this race by any means. And in fact, in terms of the betting world, it might be a smart bet to throw a little bit on him to win the award. It's just the fact of we have a kind of a mixed bag so far. Are we going to get over the hump of factoring in team success versus not? Because we saw last year, I mean, Jalen Williams for Oklahoma City, he played a massive part in the Thunder having a 16-win improvement from a year ago. He finishes runner-up because Paolo Banchero had a much better October and November than Jalen Williams did. Jalen Williams had a much better March and April and got the Thunder into the play-in tournament. So last year we didn't see it factor in. The year before we did see it factor in. Where does it level off at in terms of this year's voting for it? But I think that the edge that Chet Holmgren has over other rookies is we've already crowned SGA's leap. He's already leaped up to a 30-point per game score, and it got the Thunder to the play-in tournament, and it got them to the 9-10 game. If the Thunder can go to a top 6 seed this year, it'll be SGA still averaging 30 points per game, but what's going to be the key difference from the roster? It will be the implementation of Chet Holmgren. And while everyone else will continue to progress, it will look on paper to the national kind of voters that the only difference in last year's team and this year's team in a very, very, very tough Western Conference is Chet Holmgren. And now all of a sudden they're a genuine playoff team, whereas last year they were a play-in team that lost in the second round of the play-in tournament.
What does a I don't want to say what does a rookie of the year season look like for Chet, but just what are the expectations kind of for him coming into this year, and what does a good year for him look like to where he could be in conversation for this award?
Yeah, I think that the expectation for Chet Holmgren is high because of the situation he's walking into for a lot of different reasons. First and foremost, this is a guy who, if we went back a year ago before his injury, we forget the conversations that were happening in Oklahoma City, much less on a national scale. Could SGA be a number one player for a franchise? He's answered that question. Is Chet Holmgren going to be a unicorn himself? He's gotten overshadowed now by Victor Wembanyama. So you've seen that pressure, the outside pressure, being lessened on Chet Holmgren as we enter his NBA debut, but then also the play on the court. We saw Josh Giddey become one of the best playmakers in the NBA as he was his rookie year, as he was his sophomore year. We saw SGA become one of the best scorers in the NBA last year, which opens up the floor for a guy who shot 40% from three, and Chet Holmgren his entire basketball life, from high school to FIBA to college, and hopefully he'll be a good shooter in the NBA as well. So you can see where he will be complemented by this Thunder roster to help him get easy buckets in the pick and roll as well, with a lot of guys on the Thunder who like to get rim pressure. And then what did the Thunder struggle with last year? For as good as they were, for a surprise 16-win improvement to leap up to 40 wins, they only really lacked rebounding and some interior defense. What does Chet Holmgren bring? Rebounding, interior defense, floor spacing from 3 points, three-point shooter, which the Thunder still need to improve their three-point shooting. So he kind of on paper fills all the gaps that the Thunder lacked last year. And so that is going to be the glaring difference, and the expectation for him is to do that this year. And if he comes through for that, if he does fill those kind of deficiencies from last year's team, it's going to get loud about him being the rookie of the year, the rightful rookie of the year, which then opens up the Pandora's box of content of, is he a rookie? Should he win the award? He's already seen the NBA. We'll do this whole Donovan Mitchell, Ben Simmons thing over and over and over again, as we've seen many times in the NBA. So hopefully for our job's sake, he will be very, very good, and it'll spark a massive debate and spark massive content. But the expectation for him is to be one of the Thunder's best players this year. And we forget that we were talking about him being a generational big man 12 months ago. He's kind of gotten overshadowed now, of course, by Victor.
Yeah, that redshirt year definitely helps out a little bit. I think there's maybe a slight unfair advantage, right? Instead of Chet coming in, what was his listed weight coming to the NBA, Rylan, and what's his listed weight now? Like he's gained some weight, right?
Yeah, he's gained on paper 15 pounds, but he also looks a lot bigger in person than he did at his, rookie introductory press conference too, where he was at the end of last season. And then he's also talked openly about how getting to just simply see the speed of the game and what works and what doesn't work, sitting courtside of NBA games, has helped him greatly. Being in practices and being in film rooms to learn about the game from some veterans has helped him a lot also. And this is a guy that's been consistently locked in. This has not been a scenario like what we saw with Zion in New Orleans, where Zion was not even with the team. Chet was with the team every step of the way. In fact, he was with the team more than they thought he might have been at the first part of his injury. He was with the team all year long, rehabbing at practices, at shoot-arounds, warming up before games, even toward the later part of the season. Like, he was consistently locked in and trying to learn. So he soaked up every learning chance he can during that first redshirt year. And now it comes down to the voters to decide, is that an unfair advantage? Is he still a rookie? And the Thunder have two guys like that, because they also have a 29-year-old rookie and Vasilije Micic. So two quote-unquote rookies who are going to be older than their counterparts.
A lot of time here spent focused on Wemby and Chet, understandably so. Those are the two guys at the very top of the betting odds. But Rylan, for you, when you look at potential dark horse candidates to sweep in and win this award next season, my eyes are immediately drawn to the Thompson twins. A little bit of bias there, Amin Thompson on the Rockets, but now also with maybe some minutes opening up in the rotation due to the situation with Kevin Porter Jr., might be a bigger opportunity for him in Houston to be able to get the run that he would need to actually make a push for that award. And then also, I think people are maybe sleeping on Asar Thompson in Detroit. Those are kind of my two sleeper picks. What about you?
Yeah, I think that Amin Thompson is a sleeper pick, because if you're Houston, and you know this more than I do, you don't spend all that money if you're not trying to have a Thunder-esque leap into a play-in tournament at a minimum. Hopefully, of course, you don't want to limit yourself, but let's just say that the play-in tournament is a good goal for Houston. In order for that leap to happen, I think that it'll be, of course, who they brought in with Dylan Brooks and the rest of the group that they brought in, and also internal development, but also the addition of Amin Thompson will be a big deal in that too. So I think that he can have maybe like a J-Dub type of season, where J-Dub didn't win Rookie of the Year. He finished runner-up. He was first team all-rookie, but he wasn't talked about preseason to do either one of those things, and then ended up doing them. So maybe he can follow in that footstep. I also think that Scoot Henderson, like if the Portland Trailblazers, whatever that happens with Dame, if they kind of still linger around, kind of a similar season to what the Jazz did last year, where the Jazz weren't necessarily in it, but they also weren't tanking, and they had some fun young players play. If Scoot is willing to get them some wins because of how his style of play is so geared toward isolation and also just scoring that he has, plus the highlights that he'll have with Shaedon Sharpe, it can get him some Rookie of the Year votes, just like Walker Kessler got some last year for the Jazz. So those would be two of my dark horses to keep an eye on. But honestly, I think that this is a Victor versus Chet award for this season.
Is Victor Wembanyama an absolute lock to win Rookie of the Year? Can Chet Holmgren step in front of him and take the award for himself and for the OKC Thunder? Also, last question for you, Rylan. Coach of the Year for Mark Daigneault or Rookie of the Year for Chet Holmgren? I think I know your answer, but
yeah, I'm gonna say Rookie of the Year for Chet Holmgren is the most likely of the two, and that is because of what you mentioned. I think that voters could be kind of wanting to go against the grain a little bit of, this is a guy that's helping winning. I don't think that the Spurs will win as much as the Thunder this year. And then maybe some voters will want to say, whoa, let's take a step back from this Victor hype. And we have Chet right here, who's kind of a quote unquote poor man's Victor, and is actually producing maybe better than Victor in his rookie season and helping the team impact winning. Whereas, as we talked about last week with Mark, it's nothing against Mark. I think Mark's one of the best coaches in the NBA. It's just that his story was written last year, where he finished runner-up. He kind of got his flowers last year, even though he didn't win the award. He got his flowers and got his recognition. And now we'll see a new Cinderella team. Maybe your Houston Rockets, maybe the Detroit Pistons with Monty Williams, maybe the Orlando Magic. Like, we'll see a new Cinderella story. We got two of them last year, though, which is what hurt Mark. We got the Kings and we got the Thunder, and the Kings ended up being an actual top 3 seed. So Mark lost the award. But had the Kings not been also a Cinderella story, Mark would have won the award last year, which is the only reason why I say Chet has the easier path to their respective awards, is because we've kind of already given the hat tip to Mark.
The Thunder are definitely going to be in play for a handful of season awards this year in the NBA, and you're going to have us covered for all of that action over at Locked On Thunder. Rylan, I appreciate you stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
Thanks for having me.